less. I mean, it's in the fractions of 1% annually, and space goes at a premium. Interconnection dense sites tend to be the most valuable in the industry.
Okay.
And there are only a handful of players, whether it is EMEA, whether it is the Americas, or whether it is APAC, there are only a handful of players. Equinix is one of them, and with the acquisition of Telecity Group, have consolidated their interconnection dense sites.
Yeah.
There are some sites with, for example, Telehouse in London, but Telehouse are not present everywhere in major markets. Interaction have some facilities dotted across if it's EMEA. In the US, it tends to be a few players like CoreSite. There are some, for example, erstwhile Verizon centers now taken over by Equinix. There are a couple of carrier-owned locations in North America across 16 key metros. In India, it tends to be the 4 key metros of Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris.
Okay.
In APAC, it tends to be Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and then Sydney and Melbourne. In Australia, these tend to be sort of the interconnection-rich locations. If it's India, the 2 locations on both coasts are Mumbai and Chennai. And then if it's China, it's Shanghai, pretty much, with a clutch of homegrown players in Shanghai.
Okay.
So that's in terms of interconnection density, and operators who own these facilities. These are facilities that are fairly well known in the industry. Ownership gives a very defensible moat to operators, and in M&A transactions, these interconnection dense sites have a premium.
Okay.
Interconnection dense sites will typically trade, and when you value them, will typically trade, let's say, if you value an entire company, let's say around 10 to 12x revenues, or between 20 to 22 times EBITDA, interconnection dense sites will end up being valued anywhere between 30 to 45 times EBITDA. Okay.
So it's very attractive sector.
Very attractive subsegment. And so any operator which deals primarily in interconnection dense locations will be a cash-rich, EBITDA-rich operator with low further capex. Yeah. The issue there is that revenue growth is abysmal. Like I said, 5 to 7%.
Yeah. And just if you could just allow me to ask you really, basic question. Is this the sector, because I'm really not sure for Paulson and Clarinet, those companies, are they operating heavily in this sector, or are they in a sector in colo where it's more commoditized?
No, they don't operate in this sector. So that brings me, it segues rather nicely into the other 2 segments I want to talk about.
Okay.
Or the other 3 subsegments, rather. Okay. Now, when you look at, if you sort of follow the money in terms of what drives colocation demand, at the end of the day, it's enterprise IT, okay, which then drives the need for connectivity and then interconnection, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at that value chain, there are only a couple of places where you can host enterprise IT, either within the walls of an enterprise IT organization, which is sort of the self-contained or on-premise IT, as it's called, right? Yep. This tends to be anywhere, from in the corner of the office to an elaborate custom-built data center for larger enterprises, although that is increasingly rare. To carry our own data centers, and to more recently, the cloud service provider owned multi-megawatt data centers. And the cloud service providers, I'm referring to the likes of Amazon Web Services and so on and so forth. Now, players like Paulson, and to some extent Clarinet, although Clarinet actually don't, as far as I'm aware, they don't actually own and operate any of their own data centers. They lease data center capacity from other players in the industry, like Equinix, for example.
Yeah.
And so Clarinet play more at the end of the spectrum around managed hosting and managed services, and